Okay, so now we've established all this. I go to my original question. How can a human take the sins of the world?
Because he is God the Son. He took
God the Son is divine, isn't he?
He took those sins on himself.
Is God the Son divine?
Yes, of course.
He didn't die on the cross. So he didn't take your sins. The one who died took your sins.
Well,
he had to die to take your sins.
Yeah, well, you have to become human.
She became human. How can the human take your sins?
فتعالى الله الملك الحق ولا تعجل بالقرآن من قبل أن يقضى إليك وحيه وقل رب زدني علما.
Jesus seen the revelation of the Father. Jesus and the Father
right.
are one.
That's acceptable.
So when Jesus was
He's
walking
revealing the
around
message here. He's a messenger.
When Jesus was walking around this earth, we believe that the Father was in him and he was in the Father. So the people were seeing, because only Jesus became flesh. But since he was one with the Father, people did.
It's not one man. If Jesus cried, if Jesus said, I am going to my Father,
Jesus was also one with my Father and the Father.
How come both things in mind?
How come
Jesus is God?
How come Father in him?
But
if he say, I'm going to my Father and your Father, my God, my Lord, if God in him, why you go?
Well, it's this relationship of a father and a son.
Why?
No, he said, my God and your God to Mary.
One with the Father.
He said, my God and your God. So does Jesus have a God? Does Jesus have a God?
How come?
Well, I mean, in the same sense of the Trinity I'm talking about, that God the Father is the Father, and in that sense the God to Jesus, but God is God the Son.
Hold on, so God the Father is God to Jesus.
Well, yes, in that sense, so, yes.
See, when he spoke to Mary, that was post-resurrection in John chapter 20, after being resurrected.
Yes,
so after he was resurrected, was he still human or was he the Son of God?
He is both human and divine.
After resurrection.
All the way through, before the resurrection.
So who died on the cross?
After the resurrection.
Who died on the cross?
In his humanity, Jesus died on the cross.
So something died on the cross. So he can't be that for eternity, like you say.
His humanity died on the cross.
So he's now divine then.
And rose from the dead.
So the humanity rose as well.
Yes, that's right.
You're unique in that. Humanity rose.
Yes, of course.
So he was full body and soul.
He rose from the dead.
So now,
that's the resurrection.
So when he ascended as a human and God, both together.
Yes.
So he's sitting on the right side of God now as a human and God.
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
You want to take
5 minutes with it?
This sounds crazy.
Well, I mean, to me, it seems crazy you don't believe in Jesus.
So
I think Jesus has done sufficient to bring you to adore God.
Jesus, let's record this. You just said Jesus died as a human. He resurrected himself as a human. And he went to the Father and he's sitting in his right hand and he's the Father. This is not crazy?
No, I didn't say he was the Father.
You said he's the Father.
No, the Son of the Father.
You said he's the judge. You said he's the judge.
The judge.
You said
because the three persons judge, but God, the Son, never becomes God the Father. Jesus is eternally the Son.
Where did you get the human that died on the cross? You say the human nature of him resurrected with him. Where did you get that?
Well, from the God. He rose from the dead.
Yeah. Where does it say he rose from the dead in flesh?
Well, in all four Gospels.
They say he rose in flesh.
Yes.
As a human and man and God again.
Yes.
I've never read that. I've never read that.
All four Gospels. There's no need for me to keep on going through these web pages.
No, sure. Bring it, man. Bring
this one.
Bring this one.
He speaks of him as having rising from the dead.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to see he rose from the dead in flesh as well.
He raised himself. He, a man, no divinity, and raised himself. Yes? Now she said he's always divine. And you said he was human in his human form. So when his human form was divine or not divine?
Both. He is God and man. That's our faith.
This is crazy, man. This is crazy. You cannot be white and black in the same time.
You say, but you think it's impossible
That's
for
the
God to
oxymoron.
be also man.
Of course.
So that's
God
it.
cannot be donkey. God cannot be monkey. God is nothing compared to him.
But surely you can see it's not very respectful to speak.
Let me ask you something.
What is about? What the difference between you and animal? What the difference between you and animal? All of us are animal, but you are talking animal. Even the other animal talk as well. They speak to each other.
You believe in
Do you
original
think-
sin,
Yes, yes.
right?
yes.
So Jesus died for your sins.
Do you believe there's a difference between a human being and an animal?
Of course there is.
Do you believe in it?
Yeah.
What do you think?
You know what the difference I
There
believe?
is a difference between.
What
Yeah,
is
we
it?
got a
To
will.
me, as a Muslim,
Yeah. Do you believe
an
there's a-
animal could be better than a human. If he does, if
programmed.
the human doesn't believe, he is less than animal. Because the verse say in Quran, they got ear doesn't hear, they got eyes doesn't see, they got heart doesn't have conscious. They are like cattle, they are like animal which have no comprehension.
They're programmed.
if a human,
No, but
that,
I'm not contesting that particularly. Anyway.
okay, so a human, at least we believe all birds, all animal worship the Almighty and praise Him
Yeah, well, this
because He's the Creator, and the animal knows the Creator. But some
you
humans,
said Jesus died on the cross, the human side of him.
He said it, yes,
Yeah, human side.
and she said
Yeah.
He always divine.
in his humanity, he
Okay.
died, yes.
So the flesh died.
Yes,
Can the human flesh take the sins of the world?
in a sense, yes.
So I can take the sins of the world. I'm a human.
Well, I mean, you can't take the sins because you're not divine.
Right, but you're not talking about the divinity of Jesus. You're talking about the human.
We can share, a human being can share in the sufferings of Christ, and this is the work.
No.
This is the work.
It's wiping
this
out
is
the sins,
work-
you
This
say.
is the work He's given to the church, but Christ alone. has
You say He
redeemed-
died
has
for your
redeemed-
sins.
Yes, Christ alone has redeemed.
Okay, redeemed, that's a good word.
humanity.
So He redeemed humanity by His human side dying for you. How can the human side of Him take away your sins?
Well, because he became a human being precisely to do that.
No, but how can
In
you
order-
understanding the question? You say he was fully God, fully human. What's your belief?
So
You're fully God and fully human. He was, right? The human side of Him died on the cross. How can the human take your sins away, or sins of the world?
well, he died
Okay,
on-
when
by-
he's human,
by-
he's like me
by-
and
by
you.
su- By suffering.
That's what they keep saying,
by
now, but
suff-
now they'll change it.
By suffering the punishment for it. That's
So
why he
any
was
human
so
could have taken that punishment then.
No, because
What?
he's God.
Right. God
Because he's
didn't
God
die.
who
We had,
became man.
right. When He became man, He was man and God.
Yes.
The man bit of Him died on the cross.
That's
How
right.
can the man take your sins? That's my question.
Well, because he is God.
Now you're going
That's
to
the
God.
point.
I'm talking about the man.
Well, the man who is God and man
Yes.
died on the cross in his humanity.
Right. Stop there. The
But
God
he-
didn't
but
die.
But his divinity.
The God didn't die.
Well, God,
The man died.
Well, God-
I'm not talking about the God now. He's out of the equation.
God didn't-
Because God does not die.
No, God doesn't die, of
The
course.
man
not.
died. How does the man take your sins?
Because he is God the Son.
Now, you still keep
is
going to
God.
the God.
Well, I mean, you're just
See
saying,
how you select.
You're just saying you don't
When we
believe.
tell you Jesus didn't know the hour in Mark 13:32, you say because he's human. When we tell you Jesus didn't know about the fig tree, you say he's human.
Answer
But
this
when we come to other matters, you switch him to God.
No,
You speak and choose.
No, we believe that he's always eternally God the Son, and that he became
When he-
man.
okay.
He became man.
When he became
And-
man,
and
was he
as-
like me?
as
Was he
God-
like me?
As God and man, he died on the cross.
When he
But of
became
course-
man, was he like
but
me,
of
the
course,
human side of him?
In his divinity, he never died because.
I
he was
understand
God.
you keep saying the same thing. What I'm saying to you, when he became man, like you said, John chapter 1 verse 14, he became flesh,
Yes.
right? When it says he became flesh, was that flesh same as me with the same needs? I need food, I need sleep, I need shelter, I need clothes, all this. Was he the same man as me?
Yes.
Yes.
He
In
was
All right.
hungry. He
in
was
that-
hungry.
in
I am concentrating on that man.
In that sense,
Right.
yes.
I am concentrating on that man. I'm not going to God, the divinity. I'm just concentrating on Jesus, the man. how can that Jesus, the man who's same as me, take away the sins of the world? Tell me.
Don't bring defiance.
Because because the whole point of it is that he was divine. That's how he can take
You
away
just
The
said
God
he's a
doesn't die.
man.
Does God die?
He is God and man. That's what I said.
So who died on the
said-
cross? Hello, Amar, 1 second. Who died on the cross? The God or the man?
The man.
Right.
who
Why do
is-
you bring the
who
God
is-
into it then?
Who is God?
When
the
I
Son.
ask you how can he take your sins, you say because he was God. But God didn't die for you.
He did. He did.
Oh, God died for you.
Jesus, who is God in his person.
1 Corinthians
reality,
chapter 14,
he
verse
died.
33. God is not the author of confusion. Look how confusing this is.
Well, you find it confusing. I find it very simple.
No.
God became
It seems-
man and he died
You
on the
want to
cross
find it simple,
take
but you're not.
away our sins.
Right.
And he
But God
rose
didn't
from the
die.
dead.
God didn't die for
If
us.
you don't understand
Akhi,
it,
akhi.
don't.
Who
second,
died for you?
one-
Who
one-
died for you? Man or God?
Jesus Christ, who is God and man.
Right. But who died on the cross? The man side of him or the God side?
I'm just saying, God, who is Jesus, who is God and man, he died on the cross for us.
So,
Yes, yes.
one second. Who died on the cross? The man, the human side of
Well,
Jesus
you
or
keep
the God?
repeating
Because
that there's an
you keep switching.
alternative when I'm saying it's the same person.
Well, the
So
alternative-
Jesus, who is God and man,
I say
died
one
on
and
the
go,
cross.
one and go.
So the God,
Therefore, it's
the
nonsense
divine
to
side,
say
the
that
divine side
you're
of him
trying to
died as well.
You're trying to separate.
People
the
can hear what I'm
divinity-
saying.
Yes, one
You're
and
trying
go.
to separate his divinity and his humanity, whereas in fact
If you
they're
cannot
united.
separate them, what you're telling us is Jesus, the God, died as well.
Because
That's
I
what
don't-
he's saying.
I don't accept
Jesus,
Jesus
who
as
is
the king.
God,
Is he going to kill me now?
died
So you're saying
in
God
his
died,
humanity
and you're
on
going
the
against the
cross.
Bible, who says God is
Last one and
eternal.
go. Last one, please. Last one and go. Is Jesus God?
Yes.
Did people saw Jesus?
Yes.
In the Bible said, anyone see God, he died. Is that true or no?
The Old
Well,
Testament.
I mean, you'd have to look at the context.
Now twist it.
We'd have to look at the
I have to go, man. I have to go.
Well,
Okay.
don't you want the answer?
In Bible,
Tell me the answer.
Well, the
people-
whole goal of
subhanallah.
the Christian life is to see God.
If you
So
see
when
God,
when
you die
say-
or you don't
when
die?
If you see God after death, and
Now, who said after
he
death?
pronounces
Who said after death?
one as just.
Who said after death? Now you're adding something extra.
Well, you asked the question, and at least what
Yes,
happens
tell him the verse,
at
man.
least what
Whoever
happens
see God, he will
after
die.
death
Okay, can I have
is
a
part of
question
the
for
answer.
the-
If you
No,
want
no,
to
no,
ask
don't divert it.
part
Don't
going,
of
huh?
the answer.
Right. The original sin, because you're not going to answer this. I'll let people decide on the divinity of Jesus on the cross, right? How you switch it when it comes to the dying on the cross, you switch it over. Right. This is the
That's
scenario.
Very,
This
very
is the
insulting way of beginning the conversation.
no, but it's not entirely a fact. You switch it over, but
No, I mean,
deity
no,
and
it's
human
not
side.
It's not a switching over.
Okay, let me ask you
To
again.
believe God is.
Let me
to
ask
believe-
you again.
To believe Jesus.
Was Jesus
Christ,
man
to
and
believe
God?
Jesus, I'm answering. To believe Jesus Christ is true God and true man, and to say that He died on the cross and rose from the dead. There's nothing contradictory in that.
I want to know more. That's not insulting. Or I want to know when you said Jesus died on you for you, and you preceded that by saying He was man and God.
Yes.
I want to know now, in front of everyone, which one of these two natures died on the cross.
Well, I've told you that it was in his human nature he died.
Okay,
but
can you
in
stop
hi-
there?
But in his person, he was true God and true man in his life.
So the
and
God
in-
bit
and
of
in
him
his-
survived.
And in his death and in his resurrection.
The
And
God
he-
bit
and his
survived.
And his divinity, of course, never died. That's
Ah.
the answer.
Okay, the divinity didn't die. The divine means God. The God side of Him didn't die. So the human side died.
Yeah, but you can't separate the two because in his person.
But one of them
he is-
died on the
he
cross.
is
He's
true-
separated already.
No. He is true God and true man. And therefore there was never a disunity that you're
Watch how you separate it.
claiming.
Okay, you're saying to me
between
don't
him as God
separate
and
it.
man.
You're saying to me don't separate the two natures. Watch how you separate it. Who died on the cross? Hold on, no. Which nature?
Jesus, who is true
Which
God
nature?
and Jesus in true God and true man.
Right. Which
never
which nature?
separated.
Which Jesus?
But he-
Jesus the human or
but
Jesus the
he-
God?
Well, let's say you're separating them in your question.
Right. But-
Jesus is God and man.
How can we
As soon as
establish
you
God
separate-
doesn't die?
But what you can separate is that he died on the cross in his humanity.
Right,
and
that's-
and he rose again from the dead in his humanity.
Are you separating them?
But in his divinity, he never died. Of course.
See, you separated them. This is my point.
Well, there was a separation.
So when you
between
say
his
I insulted you by separating, it wasn't an insult.
Well, it was an insult in the way you expressed it. There was a separation between his body and his spirit for 3 days in the tomb, and then he was reunited. So there was that
What
separation.
with the human side of him
That
died.
wasn't a separation between his divinity and
The,
his
the
humanity.
humanity side of him died, right? The human side of him died.
Depends what you have to say.
Now-
He had a human spirit. as well
Whatever
as
you
that.
call it, the human
but
died.
His body died. No, but you can't.
The flesh died.
Well,
the flesh perished.
If you understand that he didn't die in his human spirit any more than he did, just as he didn't die in his
No
divine
problem.
spirit, so he didn't divine.
Died, the human side. Whether that's
No,
flesh or
but
spirit.
You're misstating the question.
Okay.
Because what we believe is he died in the flesh. He did not die in his human spirit, which in fact went down and preached during those 3 days to the people in purgatory.
Right.
And he
So
rose from the dead. So there was never any division between the divinity of Jesus and his human.
When the Romans
and-
put him
and
on
he-
the-
and his human spirit.
When the Romans
But
put
there
him on the
was-
cross.
But there was a division between his body, which died and rose again. For 3 days, there was that division.
Okay, this division was
but
what?
That's not a division between him and his humanity.
can you explain this division? What was it?
Well, it was a division between his human flesh and his human spirit.
Right. This is what I said. You reiterating what I said already. I said that his divinity cannot die. We established this. God cannot die. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
God is He alone is immortal. The Bible says.
We agreed with that.
Yeah, we agreed with that. So any death occurring here would have to be his human side. Would you agree with that?
Well, a part of his human side,
Yeah.
but not his whole human side.
Okay. So the part of his human side that didn't die, what part was that?
His spirit, I've told you.
Okay, no problem. I'm trying to establish this.
Yeah.
So the human side of him died, the flesh side, the spirit remained.
For 3 days, his body was in the tomb, or 2.5 days.
Okay, so now we've established all this. I go to my original question. How can a human take the sins of the world?
Because he is God the Son, he took
See,
our
God the
sins
Son
on
is divine,
himself.
isn't he?
He took those sins on himself.
Is God the Son divine?
Yes, of course.
He didn't die on the cross. So he didn't take your sins. The one who died took your sins.
Well,
He had to die to take your sins.
yeah, well, you have to become human
Ah,
to
she became
take-
human.
to
How
take-
can the human take your sins?
because he is divine and human. That's our belief.
But who died on the cross? We established it wasn't the divine that died. It was the human that died.
That's right. That's right.
So how can the human that died
The human,
take your sins?
The human flesh died.
How can the human flesh take your sins away? Take the sins of the world.
Well, because by becoming man, he suffered for the sins of humanity.
Right. This is my question.
In his
As a human
humanity,
being-
which was united, so he suffered this death in his human flesh, but he did not die in his spirit.
As a human
But
being,
that
how can he
suffering-
take the sins
that
of the world? Suffering, I understand.
Taking those sins, that is what he did do.
Do you understand the question I'm asking you?
Well, I think you're putting it in the question that he's trying to get the answer. Which
No,
isn't
no,
the-
it's
which
not.
isn't the correct answer.
I want you to see the question I'm asking. For example, let's go
Well,
from the beginning.
I think I'm seeing the thing.
Your belief is Jesus
You-
came
no,
down, the
that's
Son came down in the human flesh.
What you're trying to say is that dying in the flesh for humanity could not redeem humanity. That's what you're trying to say.
That's true. How can How can it
But-
redeem?
Well, because he took upon in that humanity, he willed to suffer for the sins of mankind.
So the humanity also
And
was
because-
divine then.
And because, well, yes, but in the sense.
So he
that-
wasn't a human being then.
No, in the sense that he took on that humanity,
Right.
and that humanity was in fact always united with his divinity.
I'm going to move on
Therefore-
from this point,
therefore he-
and I'll let people
he
decide.
He suffered all the sins of humanity.
That you're going to
As
believe
being
now.
God,
You've
he's-
gone to your
he is
belief.
able to do it.
I'm sticking to the Bible. So now
So am I sticking to the Bible.
I'll let people decide on this point. If Jesus, the flesh or the human side, died for the sins to redeem the sins of the world, then one must stop saying God died for you.
Well, that's your view, but
isn't
what I'm
that
trying to say is
isn't that logical?
No, I don't think it is logical. No.
Did God die for you?
The sufferings of man through history are very great, but they're all committed by humanity.
No, you've gone too far now.
In its fleshly being.
You agreed with me a few minutes ago.
Well, I'm answering this question. Just wait.
Yeah.
He suffered in the flesh for the sins of humanity. And it's a tremendous thing to meditate on and try and understand how he took the sins of the world.
I don't believe that anyway.
I know you do.
I believe
Will
Ezekiel was.
you let me finish then? He suffered those sins. He took.
You're preaching now. You're not answering my question.
Well, I'm answering your question. I'm saying how the suffering in the flesh can redeem humanity. Now that's the mystery we're talking about.
Right. God is no author of confusion.
It's impossible.
I believe
Ezekiel. It is possible.
Ezekiel in the Old Testament, when he said everybody is responsible for their own sins.
He chose in his human person, in his human nature, to offer up his suffering and death for the sins of humanity.
Right, that's preaching. What you're doing is preaching.
Because he was God the Son, then that suffering and that death has infinite value for saving every human being.
Right, can I ask you?
Because he is God.
You're giving me your belief.
Therefore, God is greater than all the human beings who ever existed. Therefore, one man who is God, who suffers,
now you're not
suffers and dies,
see how you're
suffering and death is the punishment for sin. Now, when God in his person
that's the idea of Paul.
Suffers that in the flesh.
That's Paul's idea.
Then he redeems the whole of the sins of humanity for all who believe in him, for all who unite themselves.
Now you're preaching.
With
that's
him,
all you do.
All who unite themselves with him, then they are redeemed.
Did you agree with me?
They share in his death and resurrection.
Did you agree with me?
Insofar as we choose both to believe in him.
Are you
going
to just preach?
Well,
did you agree with me?
An answer.
Did you agree with me that Jesus had two natures? Can we establish that? Right. No, because
you keep starting at the beginning.
Because you keep heading a different direction.
No, when we reach a certain point in what you call our direction,
we are
disagreeing. But then you're going back and doing it all over again and again and again.
Can we agree that you believe Jesus had two natures, a human nature and a God nature?
Yeah, we've already agreed on that.
Can we go back on what we said, that the nature that died on the cross is the human nature?
Yes, that's right.
So where does the idea that God died for you comes from?
Because he became human to live among us, although his person was divine, and therefore both his humanity, his body, shares in fact in the divinity of his.
So the body was also divine.
Well, yes, because he was divine. His divinity.
So how did the body perish on the cross?
Depends upon who he is, his person.
So the body, as a human, he was also divine.
Yes.
So he was fully God. He wasn't human then.
No. You just said he was divine and human.
Right. So which bit of him was human?
The whole of his human nature was human. The whole of his divine.
So the body was not human.
The whole of his divine nature. No. His body
was
part of his
1 Corinthians 14:33. God is not the author of confusion. These are things you need to wrestle with.
Well, I think you need to wrestle with them because my answer.
You changed it twice. Your answer, you changed it twice at least.
Well, you'd have to say which bits I changed.
I'm coming to it. When I asked you,
I don't believe that's true. But if I've said something that's
when I asked you, does Jesus have two natures? Yes. You said yes.
Yes,
correct.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I said to you, which side of him, which nature died on the cross?
He's one.
Well, he suffered.
But God doesn't die, so it's not both natures that died.
He suffered on the cross.
So which nature died on the cross?
Well, obviously it's human nature.
Now you say human. A minute ago you said to me they're both divine.
Well, his human nature has been taken.
You said the human
by
nature was
his
divine.
Divinity. So his human nature belongs to his divinity in the sense that he.
So his human
is
nature was
divine.
also divine.
In his person, he is not. His personhood is divine.
So his human nature was
personhood-
also divine.
His personhood, therefore, his human nature took on his divinity in that sense.
Are you
Yes. His flesh is
Right, so his
has
flesh is
become
also divine.
because it belongs to God
Now
the
we're
Son.
going against what we said earlier, that God died for you.
No,
That's what we're saying now.
no. God died for us on the cross because Jesus is divine.
We started by saying God cannot die, is eternal. Now he's saying God has died for you.
Well, God. In
We
his-
started by saying
in-
Jesus
in-
is both
in-
human
in
and
the-
God, and now he's saying that the human is also
No,
God.
yes, the human is God.
So which bit was
He died
human?
as a human being.
Which bit was human?
He who is true God and true man died as a human being.
If you're saying the man side of him is
But his
divine,
divinity never died.
of course, divinity, God is immortal. But you telling me the human side of him is also divine. So who died?
Jesus in his person died, who is divine and human.
Right, now you're going human. Which bit of him was human?
You can't divide off.
But that's what you're doing.
You can't divide off. Don't
Okay,
point
you'll
like
divide.
that.
Who died on the cross? Let's hear how you divide it.
Jesus-
When I ask you who died on the cross, you tell me the human side. So you're dividing him.
No, I didn't say the human side.
So who died on
It's your
who died on the
language.
cross?
He died in his human flesh, his human body.
So you
which was
divided
also
him.
divine because
So
it
the human
belongs to
flesh is
him.
also divine.
Yes, that's right.
But God doesn't die.
We established that
No,
God
he
doesn't
rose,
die.
He rose from the dead.
No, but the thing is, if God doesn't die, there's no question of rising from dead, is it?
That's the way I talk.
Well,
Isn't
not
that a
pointing, it's pointing
contradiction
away.
to God's nature?
no, it's not. He became man to share our human condition.
No, but when
And-
you say,
and when he lived as true God, living as true God and true man.
Yeah, but a
And
true
when
God-
he died on the cross, he suffered for our sin.
Yeah, I'm not
and
asking you why
and
he died. I'm
and
asking,
and
can a
went-
God
and he went
ever
down,
die?
He went down
We established he was immortal.
to the dead to preach to them, to release those who
He's
were
telling us
waiting,
why he died.
waiting
We didn't
for
ask that
him.
question.
And then he rose again in his body.
We have no issue
in
with
his
your
flesh,
belief.
but it never
We have no issue
it
with it.
never ceased
Okay,
to
okay. Let
be
me
united.
rephrase the question. If a being is immortal, can he ever be crucified or resurrected? Listen to
Well-
the question very carefully. If
well-
a being is immortal, i.e., who does not die, can he ever be crucified or resurrected?
Well, you're answering the question.
No, I'm asking the question.
You're asking the. You're,
I'm formulating
you're-
a question
you're
for you
giving-
to answer.
You're giving what is the wrong answer.
I didn't
to
give
your
an
own-
answer, it's a
to your
question.
own question.
How?
He's
Well,
asked
because
the
you're
question.
saying that a human being can't.
No, I asked God. You're not even listening to the question.
Can
an
I
immortal
asked, can an
being-
immortal being
Well, yeah.
ever be crucified or resurrected?
Well, yeah, of course.
So then he's not
That's-
immortal
That's
then?
what did happen.
Then
well,
you're-
he's not mortal in his spirit, and in fact, even in his body, he rose from the dead.
So who died
But
for
he
your sins then?
underwent the experience of dying, and in fact, it was only on the third day that he did rise from the
You
dead.
said the flesh was divine. How can it die
Exactly.
for you?
You're contradicting yourself.
Well, no,
How can he
no,
perish on
no.
the cross?
Well, how we know that he could was because that he did. You know.
No, he did is your belief. But I'm asking you, if your own Bible says God is immortal, he's not subject to death.
Yes.
We agree on that.
Yes.
Right? Death cannot touch him.
Yes.
So, but you telling me he died on the cross, how can that be possible?
Well, because God allowed it so that he would share our suffering and death.
God changed
and
his
he
nature.
rose again on the third day.
problem you lot are
That
having
does
is-
not contradict his divinity in his divine
contradicts
nature,
his message in the
nor
Bible.
does it
It contradicts his message that he's immortal.
So do you believe God